Hello and welcome, everybody. I am Serendipity Wyrd, and we are starting today, September 1st, 2020, 30 days of a self-love journey. I am bringing my practice to you this month. I talk a lot about my practice on my Instagram, and it occurred to me that I really need this practice, right? Like, I started developing this over the summer. I took a break from creating the content I had been creating for my Facebook group, Weird Divination. I had been creating divination challenges all of this year, like 30 days of prompts centered around a theme that would help move through a particular type of challenge. We did planting my seeds of growth in March to determine what directions our spiritual selves were maybe calling us to grow in. In April, as we started really coping with the pandemic, we went into a divination journey called Braving My Unknown, where the prompts took us from having everything kind of lifted up, shaken, and turned over into a place where we could rebuild a new sort of normal for us. May, we looked at crafting my reality. That journey was really about how to empower ourselves to take control of our lives, make our journey and the things that we're experiencing work for us versus feeling disempowered and maybe frustrated that life certainly is not what it was at the beginning of this year. So I took off June and July and then August to recenter into my own practice to figure out where I wanted to go next. This channel has not really had much action for quite some time, and that's because of a lot of my own internal struggles, my own fear, really everything. I spent the summer really looking at my fear and really looking at why, like, what are my motivations for creating? What are my motivations for bringing things to the world? And when I started taking that apart and trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, I settled on September being a journey around self-love. I helped create a divination challenge last year centered around self-love. That was a huge turning point for me. So I knew I wanted to do something with divination again. But yoga is a really prominent piece of my personal practice. Yoga brought me to a place of being able to connect with my body when my body felt like the enemy. We are not just our spiritual selves, and we are not just our mental, emotional selves. We are also our physical selves. And I think as witches and as spirit seekers, as magic makers, as divinely inspired people, as creatives, we can get really into our head or our emotions, and we can forget the physical. We are in these meat suits. We are here. I can only speak from the perspective of somebody having a bigger body. I've always been in the overweight category since I was like 5th grade. You know, that obviously really influenced the way I've seen the world, the way that people have seen me, my belief systems. And yoga allowed me to start to address some of that in a place of learning to be non-judgmental about it, learning to be kind to myself, and learning to be compassionate to myself. So that's really why yoga is such a fundamental piece of my personal practice. It also happens to have the benefit of doing good things for my body, right? Strengthening my body. And I can explore that from a perspective of slow and gentle and easy and almost feels like I'm doing nothing, to dialing it all the way up to my muscles are shaking. It's a challenge to go even one step further. All of us are dealing with our own challenges as we're learning to navigate the world that is very, very different from the beginning of the year. And that's bringing every one of us different sorts of challenges. I'm not going to pretend to know what all of y'all are going through. I know what I've been going through, and some of it's been really heavy and some of it's been really awesome, and it's this mix. I spent a lot of August thinking, as I was coping with the initial grief of losing my brother and that really shifting a lot of my worldview and what I thought, things I thought that were going to be necessary in my life at some point. And it also had me reevaluating, like, why am I not doing the things that I want to do? Like, because, like nothing, time and everything, nothing is really guaranteed to us. But then at the same time, wasn't sure if I wanted to do anything because grief is like that. I have dealt with depression and anxiety for most of my life in some facet. Like, that's always a tightrope I walk, is keeping myself in a space where I don't dive into the depths of depression and apathy and not caring. Like, that's not where I want to be. So I've spent several years now really focusing on what helps me stay out of that space, what helps me navigate distressful situations, what helps me navigate difficult emotions so that I can encounter those times and move through them without destroying myself. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Anyway, here we are. So self-love is kind of at the basis of everything that I do, learning love and acceptance and appreciation for myself, because way back in 2009, I realized that I was really focused on, I'm overweight, I need to lose weight. And I had this view very much of like, I am not really a valid person, or I'm not really a worthwhile person if I'm the size I am. And I don't know, like one day I'm not sure how the message came to me, but I realized that if I didn't figure out appreciating myself for who I was then and being able to accept who I was then, what body I had, all of that kind of stuff, it probably wouldn't matter if I ever lost all the weight I wanted to lose or felt I needed to lose or what have you, because I would probably still be unhappy. The weight on my body wasn't going to change the weight of my emotions or my view of myself. I think pretty soon after that, I like literally cut all my hair off and I started to try to shift my perspective. And it's taken years. It's been at least 11 years that I have been focused on body acceptance, on self-love, on being at peace with where I am and who I am now, for the most part, right? Like, we all have the roller coaster of our life where it goes up and it comes down and, we feel great and we feel But I wanted to find a place of contentment, like a middle road, if you will, where I didn't feel like I had to search for the great, 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 great all the time, because all I knew was the really, really sorrowful and low. I first found yoga when I was like 12. A video from Blockbuster. I eventually like bought a video and I practiced somewhat regularly, and then it dropped off because I was like 12. And by the time I was a teenager, other distractions and so on and so forth. So I took my first classes with actual people in like 2013. And then, things fall apart as they do. I lost touch with the teacher, that sort of thing. It showed up again in 2015 as I was coping with a really difficult loss. And I had just had major surgery a couple months prior. I didn't like jump right into yoga after major surgery, like once I was released to do normal activities. And it was a space where I could cry if I needed to. What happened on my mat was mine, and it literally didn't matter because my practice was my own. I'm super grateful to the teacher I had at that time for going over some of the yamas and niyamas in one of those first classes, talking about ahimsa, talking about compassion, talking about compassion for ourselves, because really that wasn't a concept up until that point that I had become familiar with at all or really ever thought of. Much of my life had been about giving to other people and supporting and caring for other people way before I ever considered that for myself. I know that that's something that a lot of people can relate to because I've read many, many, many other people's stories about that feeling, especially female-bodied people who, were raised as girls, women. For me, it was really heightened by the fact that I grew up caring for my brother who was unable to care for himself. Life kind of revolved around his care and what he needed. Anyway, so yoga, the mat is a space for you. It's your own experience. I am here to guide you through that experience. I'm here to give you cues and verbal information about where to pay attention in your body, how to direct your muscles, where to look, spiritual and emotional support, but ultimately your practice is absolutely just your own. Any guidance that I'm providing, it's up to you and your discernment to take that or leave it. If it's working for you, fantastic. Please tell me about that. If it's not working for you, that's a bummer. Also tell me about that, because if it's something that I can help you out with, that's fantastic. Feedback. Please, I am all about the feedback. Here we are. We're going to embark on 30 days, starting today, of a 3-pronged kind of approach to our self-love, our self-acceptance, and our self-appreciation. And it is totally okay if you are in a place right now where you think that's impossible, where you think there is no way that I am ever going to be able to think positively about myself. It is okay to be there. It is absolutely okay to be there. I invite you to try out some of what I'm sharing. I know it's worked for me. Maybe you will find something in my practice that also works for you. The whole self-love and acceptance thing, especially the body acceptance piece of that, can take years and years and years. You know, like I said, I've been on this journey for 11 years now, and I am much more stable, much more kind to myself today than I was then. But I still have my days where, you know, I'm tired. I haven't engaged in my practices. I'm disconnected, and I can spiral, right? It happens. But we learn compassion for those moments, and we learn to accept those moments as well. Your discernment on what is good for you is necessary in this. I will present physical practices, mental practices, emotional, spiritual practices. Every day, we're going to have a yoga practice with physical practice, the asana practice, tied with pranayama, which is breath work. And then we will move into a little bit of a meditation to get in touch with that mental wellness. And don't be frightened of that. I'm going to keep our meditation super short. Part of the purpose of the physical practice of yoga is to be able to get to that space where you have clarity to meditate. And it's okay if thoughts come up and all of that. It's not about just clearing your mind and being empty. After our meditation each day, I will then offer a prompt for some divination that will tie into the theme of the day, what we're working with. And that's your opportunity to use whatever divination means suits you. You can even just journal around the prompt. You don't have to have tarot or oracle cards or runes or playing cards or, whatever. You can simply sit with that prompt, journal about it, think about it, and work with it. That's totally okay. And then we'll kind of wrap it up for the day. As far as the physical practice for the yoga, things that you might want or need, a yoga mat can be helpful. You don't have to have it, particularly if you're outside. I've practiced with no mat on the beach. I've practiced with no mat in my house. Definitely test your surroundings first. We're mostly going to stay kind of situated low to the ground on the floor because I want this practice to be as accessible as possible for people. But test out your surroundings first. Make sure you're not, prone to slipping or sliding, because you don't want to get hurt. And on that subject, right? So when we're talking about yoga, and we're talking about using our bodies in ways that we probably haven't been, it's important to tap into that discernment again. Discomfort is okay. And in fact, discomfort is almost something that we're courting. It's something we're flirting with. It's something that we're approaching. It's okay to feel discomfort. It's okay to feel some stretch in the muscles, to feel and to push towards a little bit of an edge, a place of can I do this? That's part of where the really great mental attributes of yoga happen, in that space of I don't think I can, oh my God, I did. There's magic that is created in those moments. That being said, though, in no way do I want you to feel pain or distress. It's on you to use your discernment to figure out where your edge is, where that line between discomfort and pain and distress is. Do not push into pain and distress. That's not going to serve you. Whether that's from an emotional angle in your journaling, in your divination work, even in the yoga practice, or whether it's physical. There's no reason to cause yourself harm. That would go absolutely against our goals and aims here. So feel free to back off of anything that I present. If it does not feel good in your body, if it does not feel good in your heart, pull away from that. You can always come back later. It's a practice because we keep practicing. We keep trying the things. We keep seeing how it affects our lives. And sometimes that's physical, like my hamstrings don't like that particular stretch. I'm not going to push and tear them. Sometimes that's emotional. This makes me nervous. And this is a place that's causing anxiety to the point where it's going to be harmful to me. Or, this is a subject that I don't want to journal about. I don't want to write about right now. I'm not ready. That's okay. That's okay. Everything I present to you, I totally invite you and want you to show up. Show up for yourself. That's the person you're showing up for. I encourage you to really put in your biggest effort this month to every day set some time aside for you. You don't have to do the entire practice. I suspect that the practices are going to run somewhere between half hour to an hour total between the yoga, the meditation, the divination. I'm going to split up the videos for you so that you can kind of skip to those spaces, and that I'll give you the time code so you can advance the video to where you want to be. Do what's right for you. That's my message here. Do not cause yourself harm and move at the pace that's right for you. Props. That's right. So what do you need to practice yoga if you've never practiced before? Like I said, you can practice anywhere. You don't need a mat. Mats can be really useful. You can get really inexpensive mats like this. They're not fantastic. They don't provide a lot of support or cushioning for knees and stuff like that. This one was $5 at Five Below, a store here in the United States, and it's a mat. It works. You can also use this rolled up as cushioning underneath your knees, as almost a little bolster. That's an option. Pillows can be helpful as well. I have towels and a yoga blanket here. Again, cushioning when you are on your knees. If you're like, oh, that doesn't feel good for my knees, little bit of a extra cushion here and you're better. You can also, if you're coming back onto the back of your legs and that doesn't feel good, you can take a towel and just give yourself an extra lift there. So be creative with that. Feel free to modify poses, and I will give suggestions as much as I can for additional modifications you can make. If you have any questions, if you try something out and you're like, I'm not sure if it should have felt this way, DM me, send me an email. I'm really excited to help you sort out what you need for your body. This is a super passion of mine. Blanket can also be really nice for the end when we enter the final resting pose, Shavasana. Sometimes it can feel really comforting to have the weight of a blanket on you. I won't be doing that because I'm outside and it's Southwest Florida and it's freaking hot. Also, blocks can be really useful, particularly when you are like me, you got a whole lot of belly stuff happening. The blocks let you be up a little bit higher. So instead of trying to leg stuff here, you can be here and move the leg, reach the ground a little more. Blocks help bring the ground to you. If this is too far, blocks, and you're a little bit taller. These are really pretty crappy flimsy blocks from Target or something. I don't recommend this. You're much better off getting nice solid blocks that are Manduka brand. If you need them, I can help you find stuff. But you also don't really have to spend money. You can look around your house, find nice solid objects that work for you. Again, test them because you need things where you can push up against them. So don't, put a precarious stack of books that you're going to slip and fall on. But yeah, that's it for props. I think that covers everything we need to know beforehand. Yay! I'm going to go ahead and end this video, and we will get right back at it for the actual practices for today.